So something I really enjoy doing in these classes is a question and answer, a little more informal back and forth about really whatever subject we're talking about, but from a actor perspective and a DP perspective, and common frequently asked questions that might come up. So I know there was something really interesting you had to say about coverage and Eyeline, specifically relating to coverage. So talk a little bit about the inside-outside eye that you were trained on and how that changes what it's defined as well as how it changes based off of the closeness or how tight your shot is. So what is that inside-outside eye theory?
So as we've spoken about before in previous classes, it's always going to depend on the artistic vision of the director and the DP that you're working with. But generally, you always want the camera to be able to see both eyes. So even if you are having a conversation with a scene partner and you're supposed to be directly looking at each other in a profile, you always want to be cheated out just a little bit to camera, so that your face is pointed directly at wherever your coverage is going to come from.
And the meaning of that is because we want to stay close to our audience, right? That's why? Because we want our audience always, we are making this film or this TV show for an audience. So we really want to identify with that audience. So that's why seeing your whole face, it's like in a job interview how there's different like tips and tricks in order to make you a little more trusting towards whoever's interviewing you. This is kind of the same thing with an audience perspective. Like the more they have access, the more access they have to you, the more trusting or connected they will feel. So that's kind of why that exists, right?
Yes, okay. And understanding that and understanding that, of course, there are artistic choices that come into play. You can play with that rule, but generally it's a great idea to help your audience trust you as a character, to let them see both of your eyes. So you'll have an outside eye and an inside eye, and you'll just want to turn your face towards your coverage camera a little bit and use just your eyeballs to look at your scene partner.
So if we were to do a demo of that using our close-up camera here, so if we stay on Hey, Seth, thanks. So let's use our demo camera for this. So we are on a tight. What would that slight change feel like if you were talking to me?
Great, yeah. This demo camera is a little further than coverage would be.
Let me change.
Just keep in mind. Should we move?
I'm going to move.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to make it an OTS for you.
Amazing.
Does that help?
That's perfect.
Is this an OTS, Steph? So we're now set up in a OTS dirty because there's a piece of me in the shot. And you're going to demo the inside-outside eye idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you would read this scene in a script, it would just say we're having a conversation. You may be sat face to face with someone, and it makes sense to just be looking directly at your partner.
Yeah.
However, that in the wide, no one can see this left eye. I'm turned pretty far away from my coverage camera as well. So you just want to open yourself up. You want to open your shoulder up a little bit to the wide camera, and then your face will be pointed directly at your coverage camera. You're not going to look down the barrel of the camera, but you're going to just use your eyes to look at your partner's camera side eye. That keeps everything open, it keeps your audience trusting you, and it keeps you from turning away from the camera and alienating yourself. So it'll look like that.
Great. So inside, outside eye, once again, let's define it. So
inside eye is camera side, outside eye is away from the camera.
Further. Okay. And I will say that this is also a really good rule and thing and theory to understand, but at the same time, this could also vary based off the director, based off the DP, based off the style. So just knowing this is really amazing, and then from there, they can block you. So if they don't tell you otherwise, like what to do, like, so pretend I'm still here, but we're going to keep Hey here. So knowing that this is you cheating to camera, right? And it looks pretty like natural. Like if you're having a conversation with someone, it looks pretty natural. Can you go to where you naturally were when you sat down to have a conversation with me? Great. So if you were in like a multicam comedy, I would imagine that full cheat is where you're going to want to be. However, if you're maybe in more of like a drama and like it's really like tight to camera, it's really like tight eye line. We don't need to see both eyes because we're not getting all the information. We're almost there. We might want to place her here. If we're in like a profile, can you sheet over this way? If we want to even feel further away from her, that's where we would change that blocking. So your eye line, it's always good to understand the rules of how a close-up in your coverage is going to be played, but at the end of the day, it depends and allow some flexibility within that rule.
Absolutely, yeah. Understand the rule and default, but of course it is always an artistic decision of the director and the DP. So now that we know how important it is to keep yourself open to the camera and your audience, what about in the scenario where you would need to be looking down? How do you do that without completely closing yourself off?
Yeah. So once again, there's a difference between being natural to how you as a human would involve yourself within the scene versus what plays well to camera. And obviously, you know, if I'm like really, you know, looking down and I'm as a DP, I'm an actor, and as a DP, I'm trying to get a shot looking up. But if I'm like looking right down at my hands, I'm not going to get any of that contact whatsoever in the eye line. I was recently on a feature, and there was this, you know, crazy fight death scene that resulted in a girl finding someone she loved that was dying in her arms, without giving away too many spoilers. And the biggest thing there was that I had all of this eye light around her. But we didn't have access to that eye light because no matter how much I tried to tuck that eye light under her or trying to shoot up at her, I was not able to find that connection. And because she was really in her moment as an actor, and as DPs, we really have to be mindful of that, of you as actors, getting into a place where you're breaking down because someone you loved has just died, and I'm just trying to get the shot. We totally respect it. I just wish we had had that extra talk, or she had understood just how much it matters to have that connection, to sell that point in the story.
Because ultimately, in being too connected to her character and not being able to cheat her eye line up just a little bit to catch the eye light, she did herself and her character a disservice, and the audience.
Yeah. Because
we weren't able to connect with her on a very beautiful emotional level.
And it was still fantastic, but at the end of the day, we really need during those moments to have a change in how you're connecting with the audience and what those moments are as a character. And so identifying them when you're in the script, when you're breaking it down as an actor, reading it through, understanding, okay, I know I need to have a close eye line there. I know that's important for me. And then hopefully at that point you've studied it enough that it's so subconscious that you know that there's like, where's my eye line? Where do I have to be? I'm going to look there. And then you had a term as well that I hadn't heard, butt picking?
Butt picking, yes. It's as though you're looking at the ground for cigarette butts. Don't do it. You don't want dirty butts anyway. Dirty butts. You don't want to be smoking somebody's old cigarette anyway, so don't butt pick. Don't look at the ground.
Yeah, so just look probably right above that. And that's where communication with your operator really comes into play, because whether your DP is operating or you have a separate operator, building that relationship that we talked about within camera movement from the get-go with your operator really makes a huge difference in having that trust, because you could be, as an actor, in a really vulnerable moment and not want to talk to anyone, but you really want to know where your eye line is. And if you have that rapport with your operator, you can quickly just say, where's my eye line? And it won't be a new convo. You'll have had it thousands of times before with them, and they'll just tell you, look here, it's going to be your best. It's going to be your best angle. It's going to be great. And then you can focus on doing the acting. So I think the idea of having relationships on set is a huge thing with your technical department, so your DP and your op, as well as understanding the access that your character has to have to the audience, because the camera is a character at the end of the day. We choose to isolate it from you, or we choose to bring it right up to your face on a close lens. And that in itself is a character in the story, because it's how we define the story and how we build that visual world. And there's a really beautiful sentiment that was taught to me early on as a DP that the place where, you know, as cheesy as this might sound, the place where movie magic is created is really halfway down the lens. And it's where the audience sees you and you see them, and where that world of storytelling is captured. So having access to camera and letting us in is just going to make your performance better.
You know, when you see something that's indie, low budget, like a student film, where maybe everyone doesn't quite understand the importance of Eyeline, and you can tell that there was once a scene partner there, and now there's no scene partner, and they're trying to replicate the Eyeline, but it's not. How can you avoid that kind of, like, just like dramatic difference that makes you disbelieve everything you're saying?
So we have a few people that are involved in that process. Script supervisor,
okay,
DP, op, and you, and the director. But for the technical areas of that, we normally like make a mark. So we normally find from the previous shot, we'll do playback if we're just doing it with you and for some reason the other person's not there. We will like take a mark on the matte box and put a piece of tape. Your AC might give you some red tape, or someone might like tell you what word to look at. But that should be the responsibility of the script supervisor as well as your DP and director in order to guide you to find the right place to look. Because at the end of the day, if it's not going to cut together, we can't use it.
Yeah. And you shouldn't be afraid to ask for that.
No, definitely not.
If you have no idea where you should be looking,
I mean, there's a million things going on set. So if you're thinking it, ask it, because we might not have thought about it because there's so many other things going on.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're annoying, but you have to ask for your Eyeline.
Yeah.
It's a quick question.
Yeah. Great. So with that, I'd like to do a little demo on Eyeline and how your Eyeline can dramatically change even if it's only centimeters away from the lens. So let's go into a tighter shot on Hay and take a look at what that feels like.
Fantastic. Let's go.
Great. Let's cut.